welcome to some TEW gameplay. We're doing some TEW gameplay, and we're also going to be, while we're booking Owen Hart, we're going to be watching a little bit of the Dark Side of the Ring of the episode about Owen Hart. Um, a little bit of background on the company before we just jump into things, because this is the first episode I'm doing where I'm sharing my TEW experience. Um, We'll do a quick tour of the company first. Things first, I'm Jim Cornette. I'm running the game as Jim Cornette in the old Gennady converted over 2016 database because I just had a lot of fun playing it, and I had perfected kind of where everybody's stats would be. A few people's psychology up and down. Really like the database. So yeah, it starts in March of '88. So we're gonna be checking that out today, or March of '87, excuse me. I'm in November of '88, so I've been playing for quite a while here. I've acquired. Um, so originally I started as Smoky Mountain Wrestling, Jim Cornette's company in real life that he owned. It was way early before he would have founded it, but nevertheless started like that. I actually acquired CWA Jerry Jarrett pretty quickly. And then I acquired UWF and AWA both like around the same time. So I thought, all right, we're bigger than the Smoky Mountains now. We're really spread out. We've got AWA's contract with ESPN. We're on national television. We need to be expanding. We need to rebrand ourselves to something bigger than just the Smoky Mountain region. And I owned all the works, the copyrights and all that stuff for UWF in game. That was the reason. Universal Wrestling Federation. That's bigger than just even the World Wrestling Federation. It's bigger than just the local area. So I went with that. I don't even think this is the. It's not like the actual UWF's logo. It's just another one that was in the graphics pack that I found. But nevertheless, right now my franchise players, I've got Kerry Von Erich, which has, a story as well. If you haven't seen the new Von Erich movie came out recently, Iron Claw, um, about about the whole family, the Von Erich family, really. It's a great movie. If you haven't seen it, I recommend checking it out. Um, Definitely don't think I can watch that one on stream. That one will probably get me taken down. But we've got an episode of Dark Side of the Ring that we might be able to get to as well. I got Ted DiBiase here. Um, Number two in my franchise players. Uh, the Million Dollar Man. He's been a multiple time champion, and I think he's currently holding a belt. We got Kurt Hennig, who's had a huge feud with Jerry Lawler um, over the last, basically this entire time the company's been open. They've been on and off having different runs against each other. And then I've got the Revenant Undertaker. So the Revenant Undertaker is a character for, Undertaker. Uh, Mark Callis. I first had him come in as Mean Mark Callis, and he had a Texan gimmick. The gimmick was great. It got over. He actually saw himself rise up from unknown to uh, major star level, depending on who I had him lose to that week in my company. And then the tragic Texas death match against Dutch Mantel ended in the loss of the life of Mark Callis. Mark Callis is no more. It was, shown on television, on pay-per-view to be specific, and announced on television the next time that Mark Callis had died. Dutch Mantel was suspended under further investigation. The investigation came back eventually, and Dutch Mantel was brought back in as uh, lack of a body was found. No body was found. And then a month or so later, Taker, the Revenant Undertaker, some vignettes played explaining what a Revenant is and Um, these undead creatures, these beings that come back and are uh, imbued with this life force in order to enact their revenge. So it's like Mark Callis is back as this revenant to kill Dutch Mantel and to kind of reclaim what is rightfully his. And then we have Terry Gordy, who's been killing it. Excellent worker in ring. Been teaming with Michael Hayes, who's also really great. He should be on the franchise here, but there's just not enough room. Sean is on there interchangeably with other people. The next big things here, we've got Rikishi, we've got Ray Trailer. A couple of mid-level guys in my company right now that could definitely be upper-level stars if we want them to be. Oh, Eddie Gilbert is out in rehab currently. Um, but yeah, maybe he'll have a dark side of the ring too. We have some hot prospects. We got Yamada, Fatu's out here, Rikishi, Barry Darso. I have him under a masked gimmick, working the Destroyer. It's not the same as the face paint, but I didn't bother making like a custom picture. Um, the Warrior here, definitely a hot prospect. Scott Levy, Raven. Um, talk the talk. We got Michael Hayes. We got Jerry Lawler. We got Ted DiBiase. These are our top promo guys. Michael Hayes is number one, Jerry Lawler number two, Ted DiBiase number three, Billy Graham number four, and Kerry Von Erich is actually number five for our promo guys. Showstoppers, our best in-ring workers, Yamada is number one. This kid is getting better and better every week. It's crazy. I signed him up for 2 years. He's a New Japan loyalist, but for some reason they didn't want him. It wasn't an excursion. He didn't get re-signed. Sting is definitely a nice in-ring worker. We got Ted DiBiase, we got Shawn Michaels, we got Dynamite Kid. So yeah, these are our best in-ring, people who can step it up to the next level. The ring generals are the best with psychology, the best overall in-ring workers. So yeah, we've got Ted, we've got Kurt Hennig, Mr. Perfect, Dynamite Kid, Keiji Yamada, and Shawn Michaels. Who's hot? Taker. Owen's on here. We'll be seeing some more of Owen. Billy Graham, George Steele, and Hillbilly Jim are all on the, you know, lower end of the momentum curve. Um, a lot of older guys. So we got Eddie Guerrero on our hidden gems. We might bring Eddie back through. We've had Eddie and Chris both for different stints as freestyle workers. But yeah, I think that's a pretty good coverage of the show here. These are our belts. So I've had purchased the AWA, like I said. Taker's currently holding on to that belt. He took it off Kerry Von Erich after Kerry had about 8 defenses. We have Jerry Lawler holding the Southern title. He's a current 45-time champion. This was originally Continental Wrestling's belt, so Jerry's definitely held it a lot. You'll see Mark had a reign for 0 defenses. This was in the transition after Callis had he turned from face to heel, uh, and this was part of that whole Dutch Mantel feud where um, basically Dirty Dutch would come out and he'd say, "Oh, I'm Dirty Dutch Mantel. I'll do whatever it takes to win. I'm the most grittiest, like most ruthless person. I'm the best out here because of it." And our babyface Texan Mark Callis, who went by Mean Mark, affectionately, started to actually become really mean, and we saw what it looked like when he was really mean, when he was ruthless, when he was aggressive, and when he started breaking the rules and started being heelish, um, in order to kind of chase after Dutch to try to get Dutch's title off of him. And he eventually succeeded in doing that. This isn't all about Dutch, and this isn't all about Taker. This is about Owen today. And as we're 10 minutes in, let me just start to kind of get to it. Um, let's see, let's a couple other titles because we got Sean holding the UWF Heavyweight Championship. We have Dutch who is back in the title picture, not to the liking of Undertaker. Then we have Dynamite Kid and Owen, tag champs right now. This is the Universal Tag Champs, so my main show tag championships. And then the Freebirds have my B show tag championships. I got two shows because right now I purchased the AWA's whole show, and it was the best I could get at the time, so I took ESPN. But after I acquired UWF as well, and then after I had a few shows on AWA's network on ESPN there, we had enough popularity to get a really good deal with actually with TBS. So I'm on the Superstation. But yeah, I'm ranked second in the world. We're feuding against WWF and Crockett. Crockett is third in the world, but currently like $10 million in debt. I think that they are about to close. They won't sell to anybody, but they are deeply in debt. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I am up to Saturday, so I've got Saturday Night Fever, and then Sunday night is AWA's show live. Um, Decided I don't like taping the shows, especially four at a time is what AWA is set to tape them at, but it's really just not a great idea. You lose all your revenue from ticket sales, and you just show the same show, and the crowd by the time you get finished is just so tired, so burnt out, and they don't want to watch. You get terrible ratings essentially, is what I've discovered, at least in my experience. But anyway, I digress. We're going to get to some Dark Side of the Ring. We're going to jump back in for some commentary when I'm booking Owen, and I'll tell you kind of the story that I'm representing with the bookings that I'm putting Owen in. But otherwise, I should just be, you know, taking a break if we need to discuss something. But otherwise, yeah, we'll watch some of the show here.
Cast in the role of a lifetime.
Owen Hart was a naturally gifted wrestler. He was born into a legendary wrestling dynasty, but he...
As a fan of Owen Hart, pioneer of all pioneers, one of the best.
I knew that this guy was going to make it. You can tell.
When I grew up, I wanted to be just like Owen Hart.
He was really the chosen one.
Owen, he just had a very nice aura. He was always just trying to spread the joy.
And he was cast in the role of a lifetime.
Owen Hart was a naturally gifted wrestler. He was born into a legendary wrestling dynasty, but he put family above all else. Despite his success in the ring, he was always searching for a way out of it. On May 23rd, 1999, during a live pay-per-view event, Owen Hart's hopes for a life after wrestling were tragically cut short.
Ladies and gentlemen, when you're doing live television, a lot of things can happen, and sometimes they are not good.
Is this really real?
Then I remember hearing a gasp from the crowd.
It was shocking. Like, oh, what do you mean Owen fell? He goes, Owen just fell.
There was Owen. He was like laying in the ring, like face up.
I just heard them screaming, saying it's not a fake, get a real EMT back here.
If he fell, he's got to be dead.
Owen Hart fell from the ceiling during an event in Kansas City.
Someone doesn't just fall from the top of an arena. Something's wrong here.
Her husband flew to Kansas City to go to work and never came home again.
Mere days after Owen's death, his widow Martha vows to uncover what happened that night in Kansas City.
There will be a day of reckoning, and this is my final promise to Owen. It was out of respect for Owen. I can't let everything that our life was just be all for nothing.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
From the earliest days of professional wrestling, it has been traditionally a family business.
We are the greatest combined force in the World Wrestling Federation.
Few compared to the impact of the Hart family in Calgary, who has spawned generations of in-ring icons. Despite being the youngest of 12 siblings, Owen Hart was considered a true prodigy. But with the circumstances surrounding his death, his legacy has become more complex. In this episode, his family comes together to share memories of the husband and father they lost all too soon.
I don't think you can talk about pro wrestling history and not incorporate the Harts into that conversation very early. I'm Jim Ross, 2007 member of the WWE Hall of Fame, the NWA Hall of Fame, and the National Hall of Fame. And one of the athletes that I work with very closely is the late, great Owen Hart, one of the best.
Stu Hart had a dozen kids, and all the boys became wrestlers, and all the girls grew up to marry wrestlers. So the extended Hart family was almost 20 people involved in the professional wrestling industry. I'm Jim Cornette. For almost 40
including
years,
Dynamite
I've been a promoter,
Kid,
a
who
matchmaker,
we'll get to
announcer,
next time.
manager, historian, all things related to professional wrestling, and I also managed Owen Hart. The Hart family was almost a dynasty in wrestling because of the respect that Stu Hart had as a promoter, and the fact that when the boys got started becoming wrestlers, they
Jim
were all
Cornette,
good.
that's us,
and the
y'all.
Hart family, over a
That's
period
us.
of time, became one of the royal families of professional wrestling.
It was like a nice Sopranos. They didn't kill anybody, but they stuck together and they helped each other. And everybody got a chance to pick the brass ring off the wrestling
nice
merry-go-round.
All of his sons began to want to follow in his footsteps. Bret Hart was obviously the biggest star worldwide. Some of the other sons, Ross and Keith, were stars as well. And then the son-in-laws, Davey Boy Smith, the British Bulldog, Jim the Anvil Neidhart. So many of them got to be stars that at one point there was a Hart family member in half the territories in wrestling. Owen was the youngest brother to get involved in wrestling. But when he started, he was a prodigy instantly. Owen Hart, as a rookie, he was spectacular. His acrobatics were amazing. He could flip backwards off the ropes. He could land on his feet from every direction.
I saw.
And that is just part of the reason why he's such a great performer. Owen Hart, great kid. So let's see here. Bring it down for you. So we're gonna book Dynamite and Owen against what we have here, the Unholy Union. It says it's technically, so it's part of Kevin Sullivan. I called it the Dark Brotherhood because I'm a big Bethesda, Oblivion and Skyrim player. Big stand there. So the Dark Brotherhood, whenever it originally started with Adrian Adonis and Kevin Sullivan, and they have some excellent chemistry, either great or excellent chemistry teaming together. So I worked it out that Adonis likes to play these, and we'll get to Adrian Adonis too, also as a Dark Side of the Ring episode. That's why I kind of set this up. It looks nice to have like an 88 game. We can get a lot of these. We can hit a lot of these Dark Side of the Rings, but in any event, they were originally called the Unholy Union, Adrian Adonis and Kevin Sullivan. Eventually, Kevin, kind of opens that up and creates a stable where he brings in the Destroyer. Well, right now, Adonis is in rehab, so the Destroyer was originally going to be the muscle for Kevin Sullivan and Adrian Adonis, who, can handle themselves, but just to have a lackey at ringside. Now it's Barry Darsow playing the Destroyer and Kevin Sullivan, who are basically the majority rule tag team for now. But whenever any of them are acting in a tag team capacity from the stable, Kevin Sullivan refers it to the Unholy Union of, the Destroyer and Kevin Sullivan, or the Unholy Union of Kevin Sullivan and Adrian Adonis. So that's essentially why they're called that. But what we have here, we have a demon occult gimmick going on for, demon being the gimmick of the Destroyer, a demon that Kevin Sullivan has raised, and occult, well, he's an occult kind of cult leader, if you will, Kevin Sullivan. So those are our heels. Those are our bad guys. You can see some pretty obvious problems there with where they're going to run into conflict with the good guys. But for our record here, the Raging Stampede is our face team of Owen Hart and Dynamite Kid. Dynamite Kid plays the Machine. gimmick, wrestling machine that is, there to annihilate and just defeat every foe, vanquish his opponent, and move forward. He doesn't show much emotion. He sells, he's a babyface. He does his selling, but he doesn't show much emotion other than while he's wrestling. When he's fighting, he's got his game face on, type of a thing. We also have the technical wizard in Owen Hart. So Owen is a well-trained wrestler through the dungeon, as they're going to talk about, and all of the amazing things that they're just referencing about Owen, the flips, the technical prowess that he exhibits in the ring. So yeah, that's one of the things you can believe Jericho about when he says it. He was one of the greats. Not a whole lot of things you can believe Jericho on. Not anything really, but that's one of the things where he's being truthful. So yeah, we've got this this kid here and Dynamite Kid, and we're gonna book them up against the Destroyer and Kevin Sullivan. For the most part, I see this match, the psychology, the storytelling of it, breaking down kind of in more of a, well, actually, we need a brawl for this show. I like the idea that Dynamite Kid is starting off in the ring. Dynamite's a very tough guy, he's got that tough guy image. You'll see more on that later. But yeah, he's definitely one who's not to be messed with. And he thinks he can handle these guys, so he starts off in the ring. He gets in over his head. The heels cut off the ring. They keep him probably the first 10 minutes of the match from Owen. Don't let him touch Owen. Don't even let him get towards that side of the ring. They keep him completely cut off. If he does cross the threshold of being halfway over, he's got an opponent on the other side that's holding him back. And just, they work the leg. They're going to try to immobilize him completely, so they're going to have a lot of quick tags on the Unholy Union side of the ring. A lot of, working that left side, get him in the gut, get him in the leg, keep him down. Eventually, building to a hot tag where Owen comes in and Owen clears the house. Owen, beats down on him. Owen does his stuff, gets his stuff in, and we go home for the finish. Good triumphs over evil, all of that wrestling stuff. And, the demon and the occult leader don't walk away with the victory. But yeah. All right. Let's book that up. And we'll put the belts on. And they continue to hold the belts. So, good for them. Good for everybody. Let's hear some more about young Owen.
I'd never seen before. Backflips off of a guy's back. He had blonde hair. He looked cool. It kind of looked like a bigger version of Johnny from The Karate Kid. I just thought, I want to do this. I want to do it with that guy. And I used to draw pictures of me and Owen Hart as the tag team champions in Stampede. I just really was influenced by him.
You could tell Owen was a natural. You didn't have to teach him. He'd already picked it up by osmosis.
I'm thinking within hours of him debuting, he's as good as anybody in the territory. You can see it. Just get him in the game. He's going to be a star. He was.
Please, Owen, I'm going to cut the tape.
Oh, hang on.
Well, why don't you say something to the camera, you egomaniac?
Hello there.
I am Martha Hart. I'm a doctor for the University of Calgary and Alberta Children's Hospital. I'm the founder of the Owen Hart Foundation, and I'm a mom. That's my whole title. I started dating Owen when I was 15. For me, he was just very striking. He had this blonde hair and really well built, and I thought he was a bit of a scrapper because, well, first of all, he was an amateur wrestler, but then as it turned out, he's actually quite a gentle giant underneath. He was a really secure, grounded person. Even though he ended up being a very world-famous wrestler, he didn't feed off of that fame. He really wanted to have this very normal life. He wanted to have, you know, a normal job. He wanted the white picket fence.
Hi, Owen.
Hi, Martha.
What you doing?
Just walking with my boy, Owen, here.
Owen was an amazing father. He loved being a dad.
Hi, Owen.
Hi.
My childhood was phenomenal. I loved every second. I'm Hart, and I am Owen Hart's son. My mom's love for my father was unexampled. They had a love that could only get stronger with time. I love trains. Trains are my favorite thing on earth, especially toy trains. Every year, a train show would come to Calgary, and I only wanted to go with Dad. And I remember he said he was going somewhere, like a big trip. But I think what he did was he actually rebooked it. That was him stiff-arming the show and saying, you know, kids come first. And this weekend I cannot miss, and this one's for my son. But I remember that when he was there, it was us there together, and Mom and Athena.
Athena, do you like that? Yeah.
Him taking me to the zoo, that was like our thing. And I don't have very many memories, but that's like the one that's always stuck, and it's just, yeah, it makes me happy because the short time that we had together, that was my favorite. I went to school where my dad went to school, and so everyone always knew me as like the wrestler's daughter.
Yay, Daddy wins. Who did he beat?
Owen loved the wrestling business. He wasn't a lifer like some of the other guys. He wanted to save his money, devote it to his family, and get out at an early age.
At the age of 23, Owen signs with the WWF, where his older brother Brett is quickly rising through the ranks as an up-and-coming star.
I remember going to the Winnipeg Arena to see a WWF show, and this guy comes to the ring wearing, I knew what Stampede Wrestling tights looked like. They had lightning bolts on the side and 3 stars on the ass, except for he had a mask. I'm like, wow, I wonder if that guy looks like a Stampede Wrestling guy. Who is it? And then he did the bum flip, and I was like, that's Owen Hart.
Owen had a great personality, but he didn't have a over-the-top personality that translated on television for the style of the WWF at the time.
By 1993, the Blue Blazer persona is phased out, and Owen enters a storyline portraying Brett's jealous little brother looking to prove himself.
Bret Hart, you're nothing but a selfish person. Your ego is too big. You only worry about yourself, Bret.
Their feud builds towards a highly anticipated match at WrestleMania 10.
There's a lot of great matches I would watch. One of them would definitely be in the Garden, WrestleMania 10, Owen and Bret. Because here's the deal. The 2 brothers from Calgary, 2 sons of Stu Hart, came into New York City, Madison Square Garden, world's most famous arena, and stole the show. Bottom line. I think it was a testament to Bret that he went along with it, because it was really designed to help Owen. Owen wasn't over yet. He was getting there. He was en route.
Whoa.
Bret was a star, arguably the biggest star that we had.
Owen usually has
So
80s
doing
and
this
90s. That's crazy
really
for
brotherly
Owen.
love. He helped his brother
Haven't carried
get
the match.
recognized.
That's
He got the
wild.
spotlight
Well,
on him.
it's a brawl.
After his win at WrestleMania, Owen Hart comes into his own, achieving accolades beyond the shadow of his brother. But for Owen's family, his growing success means a more rigorous travel schedule.
He was gone over 250 days a year, and he would go 10 days on and then 3 days off.
Just on my way to go wrestle at the Nashville Municipal Auditorium.
It was just a revolving door of, you know, he was home and then he was gone and home and gone.
Nice. Nice.
It's a rough life. One day I'll have hopefully some money to pay for all the aches and pains that I've done. I can enjoy myself at home with my wife and family.
Oh, that's nice.
95's
In
a good show.
1997,
Take that.
Bret's controversial departure from the WWF to rival company WCW shakes up the entire industry. In an incident known as the Montreal Screwjob, Bret is stripped of his championship belt following creative differences with
There's
the
an
company.
entire dark side of
Fans
the ring
witness
about it.
real-life backstage drama unfold as Bret is left stunned on live television.
The Montreal Screwjob was a double cross on Bret Hart, and Bret was hot. He was mad.
Even though Owen didn't share the same sort of philosophy or view of wrestling that, Bret had,
Fritz
he knew
reads
it
my
was
wrestler's
important
court.
to his brother, so he knew his brother was going to be crushed. So as soon as that happened, he went right to the ring and told Bret, don't worry about it. It doesn't matter. It's, it's all garbage anyway. But for Bret, it was a stab in the heart.
This thing was taking on a life of its own, and it was starting to look bad and reflect poorly on the WWF, and they wanted to keep one member of the family.
The fact that we knew Owen was going to be a star, big star, not a star. He was already a star. But to get to the next level, we gave Owen a new contract. You can't lie to people. So, it had nothing to do with Montreal. Bullshit. It had a lot to do with Montreal. Come on. But that's not bad. It's just what it is. We knew what we had, and he was so motivated from being Bret's little brother to being Owen Hart. And with Bret gone to another team, it helps facilitate that.
It has been said that anything can happen here in the World Wrestling Federation, but now more than ever, truer words have never been spoken.
Vince McMahon wanted wrestlers to start being actors at this point, and he couldn't understand why they didn't want to go along with it. Because the way that wrestlers had always been portrayed was, you're not playing a character, this is you.
Surely the era of the superhero who urged you to say your prayers and take your vitamins is definitely passé.
In the new entertainment attitude era, they didn't know what to do with Owen because he was just a great professional wrestler. They kept trying to find something to plug him into. Well, let's get him in an affair with somebody. Deborah McMichael.
Owen was the one guy that was always pushing back. I don't want to do this angle. I don't want to look like I'm cheating on my wife with Deborah.
It was that tipping point that we reached at that time between, we're not going to use great wrestlers just because they're great athletes and they're great wrestlers. They have to be willing to put on goofy outfits and do skits.
But check this out, Owen Hart, man, his head is not in this at all.
So that's why when they came to him with a revival of the Blue Blazer as a comedy gimmick, okay, sure, at least that's not going to make my
All right. While we're getting into Owen's booking troubles in WWE, I assure you nothing like what's happening at WWE and what's going to happen later in the episode, anything tragic like that. Because this is a story of tragedy, as most of the Dark Side of the Ring stuff is going to be. Hopefully y'all are aware of that, how the story with Owen Hart ends. But anyway, the story I'm telling on the TEW side of things here is going to be Owen going up against Michael Hayes. Michael Hayes, with his egomaniac gimmick, has gotten incredibly over. Probably, one of the biggest egomaniacs in the entire company. But yeah, we're going to have Owen one-on-one action. He has the tag belts of the other show. Tonight is the Sunday show, and Michael Hayes is going to be representing, Sunday's show's World Tag Team Champions. And they're going to go after it. Should be able to do some good storytelling with the, technical wizard gimmick versus the egomaniac. Even though it's Owen's thing to be so technical in the ring, Michael Hayes is an egomaniac. He thinks he can do it. He's going to kind of try and one-up Owen, and it's going to be both a match of technical prowess and a matchup of these two guys and the way they feel about how they work and the passion behind it. We'll see what they can do. Owen has been a main eventer in my company. It's just in TEW 2020, it's kind of hard to
family
keep
look
a
big, right?
going.
It's just stupid.
So you really get to decide.
You got one of the top 4 or 5 workers in the world, and you want to put him under a mask, an unknown mask, the Blue Blazer. Didn't work. Bottom line is really simple. Creative couldn't find a better idea to utilize one of the best technical workers in the entire world, and I found that to be embarrassing.
In 1998, the WWF reprises the Blue Blazer character, a campy superhero gimmick Owen Hart portrayed a decade earlier.
Take your vitamins, say your prayers, and drink your milk.
They were also trying to spoof Sting, who was a wrestler in the WCW.
Speaking of Sting.
And he would come down, descend into the ring. And so I think they were competing with WCW, and that was one way that they could almost make fun of them too, in a sense.
He's stuck! The idiot is stuck in the harness!
Company that had rigged Owen was a top rigging company that had rigged Elton John, the Rolling Stones. They also had worked for Disney and MGM in Las Vegas, so they were really renowned. You know, Owen didn't have control over any of the stunt. He was locked in with what they call a locking carabiner, which they feel is the only safe apparatus to use if you're doing these types of descent.
And they can't get out of the harness! This is nonsense!
6 months later, the aerial descent of the Blue Blazer is revisited for an upcoming pay-per-view event called Over the Edge.
Owen was on his way home. He was just flying in, and I was literally just walking out the door to go pick him up from the airport when I got a call from someone that worked at the WWF, and they said, well, you know, we need to get his measurements for a vest because we're doing this drop-in this weekend in Kansas City, and we need to get his measurements ASAP. And I remembered thinking, you just had him. He was just with you guys. Why didn't you get it? And I asked her that, and then she said, well, we just decided, we just wrote it in. So I actually asked on the phone about, you know, who'd be rigging him, and the girl on the phone said, oh, you know, don't worry, we have the top riggers from LA coming in, so don't worry about that. Yeah, it's totally safe. He never questioned ever his safety because he assumed that this billion-dollar company was certainly going to make sure that they hired the best in the business, which they did not.
Life on the road is never ending for Owen and his family. And on May 22nd, 1999, he travels to Kansas City for Over the Edge.
It was Saturday when he left. He was rushing out the door, you know, just embarking on another long 10-day journey away from home. He decided that he was going to take Oj to the airport, and he'd pick up my mom. She'd drive Oj back to the house.
It wasn't very common where I would take Dad to the airport, but this occasion was different. And the last thing he said to me was like, you look after your mom, you take care of your mom, you take care of your sister. And then he was walking in with his bag over his shoulder into the airport. I wasn't sure what that meant. I honestly didn't think anything of it. It just seemed like something you'd say when you were saying goodbye.
My name is Jimmy Corderas, and I am a former referee with the WWF/WWE. We got there, we set up the ring, we got our match assignments, which was Blue Blazer, Owen versus the Godfather. They happened to be together at ringside, and I went over and got with them, got the finish to the match, and that was basically it. It was business as usual.
I am the Godfather, WWE Hall of Fame Godfather. I remember hanging out with Owen that day. We talked about the match, we talked about the finish, just normal stuff, hanging out. We were sitting in the arena, and he said that he was getting ready to practice one of the things, and he did that, and I watched him.
I had a feeling that day that Owen was not his normal, exuberant, enthusiastic self about what he was doing that night. And I remember saying something about, you know, better you than me. I don't like heights. He said, I don't either. I think that he was a little concerned, and look, he's the one who's got to do it. There's nobody can do it for him. So there's no stunt double. Just a couple little things he said, and maybe more specifically what he didn't say, led me to believe that he's not totally down with this thing.
On May 23rd, 1999, Over the Edge takes place at Kemper Arena in Kansas City, Missouri. The event plays to a sold-out crowd and airs live to hundreds of thousands at home. In preparation for his dramatic entrance, Owen Hart makes his way to the top of the arena.
That night, myself and Mark Henry worked Kane and X-Pac for the tag titles in the first match. And I believe Owen was like the third or fourth match. I remember talking to Kane and X-Pac and seeing Owen walk by, and this was before our match.
From the rafters, Owen changes into his Blue Blazer costume, and the rigging crew readies him for his descent.
We were clearing out the ring. I had my left hand on the top rope and I was kicking debris out of the ring and I was moving towards the corner. At that time, there was a promo playing on the screen of the Blue Blazer.
Ooh, the Godfather. Just saying his name makes my blue blood boil.
Hanging in the air over 80 feet above the ring, he waits for his cue.
And then here comes the time for the entrances. And I'm looking at my monitor, looking at my paper, and all of a sudden Lawler gives me the elbow. I looked up and I just caught Owen coming into my line of vision. A blur. Poof.
And I just, I thought I heard screaming. And then I felt something brush against the side of my head and my shoulder. And at the same time, the top rope that I was holding pulled out of my hand and came back and like jammed my fingers. And I'm thinking in my head, what the heck was that? And when I turned and looked, there was Owen. He was like laying in the ring, like face up. And I just started screaming for help.
I thought he hit the turnbuckle or the ring post because it really sounded sick.
Oh,
that's when
75. Come on,
things kind of went sideways.
Nice.
The Blue Blazer, as we know, as Owen Hart, was going to make a very spectacular superhero-like entrance from the rafters, and something went terribly wrong here.
I was watching the pay-per-view, as I did at the time, and then they go to Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler saying that Owen Hart has had a bad fall, or whatever they said, and we'll keep you posted. I'm like, what? What do you mean?
And they're not showing the ring. They're just panning crowd. What's going on here? I said something's wrong.
I was at the gorilla station
Rising
behind the curtain,
fast.
and somebody said, Owen fell. Owen just
We
fell.
have
And I went,
risen
Owen fell?
to
What?
big size,
Because Owen
y'all.
just fell.
I kept getting these alerts in my headset. We need another update.
Sorry,
but I'm not getting any updatable material.
Moment.
And JR's, you know, filling time on live television while the guy's laying there in the ring dying.
Well, it's one of the most shocking things I've ever seen. This is not your typical wrestling storyline. This is a real situation.
I said, fuck, I've never seen anything like that. Not on any wrestling program, not on any television program. It's never happened before.
It was Jerry Lawler who came back. He came through the curtain, and Jerry was as white as a ghost. And his exact words were, I think he's dead. And we're like, who? And he was like, Owen. And then it was just like...
Jerry Lawler back joining me here. King, I was just reiterating to the fans, this is not a part of the show. We're here to entertain and have fun, but this is neither.
No, it doesn't look good at all.
I knew something was wrong because Lawler, his face just became ashen white. Like he'd just seen death.
And they wheeled Owen past us to go to the ambulance, and... That's not even an image I want to even bring up in my head anymore. That was not what I wanted to see.
When they wheeled him through the curtain, they put him in the ambulance, I remember just being in shock. When they did wheel him back, he was like blue. And I remember that. And I remember crying, too.
They didn't want to stop the show, so Jeff Jarrett, who was real close with Owen, did a promo, and he was in tears.
Owen Hart, I'm praying for you, buddy.
In the chaos, Kevin Dunn, the executive producer, thought that I had been told that what the deal was. And I said, Kevin, nobody's told us anything. What is the update? And he said, he's dead. And you're back in 10, 9.
And I have the unfortunate responsibility to let everyone know that Owen Hart has died. Owen Hart has tragically died from that accident here tonight.
On camera that people saw was the result of 10 seconds of preparation. Didn't know what to say. And it wasn't a storyline. I got very numb after that night. My hands were shaking. My stomach was hurting. I was damn, man.
And they went on with the show. When Owen was shit. When Owen was falling, everybody that was there said the last thing that he yelled was, "Look out." A guy's fallen from 100 feet and he knows he's done. And the last thing he's thinking is, "Look out, I don't want to hurt you." You know, that's...
Wow.
It was fucking foolish. It was unnecessary. It didn't need to happen.
That's dark.
During a live pay-per-view event, Owen Hart was set to make a dramatic entrance from the rafters of Kemper Arena when something would go terribly wrong.
The phone rang and it said unknown caller, which was always like kind of code for like, that's Owen on the road. And so then I picked it up in a hurry and I was like, hello? And then, you know, I heard this voice like Martha and I said, Owen. And then he said, no, this isn't Owen. This is Vince McMahon. You know, Owen is such a prankster. And I'm like, oh, Owen. And he's like, no, it's Vince McMahon. And then he said, I'm calling you because, you know, I have to tell you that Owen's had a fall. Well, what do you mean? Like, how far did he fall? What's wrong with him? Is he conscious? Like, and then he was like, I don't know. Well, I need to talk to somebody who's got some answers. And so then he said, well, someone will be calling you right away. Then the next call that I got was from the doctor from the Truman Medical Center. So the doctor, you know, he said, are you home alone? And I said, yes. And he said, well, you know, we should really fly you down to get this kind of news. And, you know, he was kind of going through all of these details. And then I said to him, you know, doctor, could you just get to the end and just tell me what the end result is? And he said, I tried. I did everything I could to save his life, but I couldn't. And he said, I'm so sorry, but your husband has died. And then I just, you know, I just doubled over and I just screamed, no, no, no. But, you know, of course, all the no's in the world weren't gonna change anything.
Whose belt is that, Owen?
Dad's.
Dad's. And what is it? What kind of belt?
Champion belt.
Champion belt. World Tag Team Champion.
My memory of May 23rd begins in my basement of my house. I was with my one neighbor and they said my mom was crying, and really crying. And I was like, well, what is my mom crying about? And she said, I don't know why your mom's crying, but she's crying a lot. I went upstairs and I opened the door and I walked through the foyer and into the kitchen, and there my mom was screaming, what am I going to do? And I really did not have any conclusions drawn about why she was so hysterically sad.
And I just remembered, like, it was just such a moment of truth where I just, like, saw so clearly, like, there were just two paths in front of me. One total destruction and one of, like, reconstruction, you know? And I was like, I can't let this destroy everything that we worked for and let everything fall apart. You know, all I could think of were Oj and Athena, because I was like, their whole lives are gonna be different now. And all they have is me. That's it. They're 3 and 7 years old. So I need to make sure that, you know, somehow I survive for them.
Then Mom has to take me upstairs because it's bedtime. And we sit at the foot of the bed on the side. Nobody prepares for this. But she did it, and she said, your dad's dead. She said he's died. He fell, and he died, but he didn't feel any pain. That memory has played in my mind millions of times. I remember that night All three of us slept in the same bed, and I just looked at the roof. I just looked at the roof, and I tried not to hear my mom sniffling. I don't think either of us slept that night.
Martha and her family begin to make final preparations as Owen's body is transported to Calgary.
I remember the funeral director saying, you know, "Are you ready? Are you ready?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm ready." As soon as he opened the door, I just remembered being absolutely horrified by what Owen looked like. I screamed so loud, and I tried to run away. And Brett just bear hugged me, and then we just sort of did this weird little like inch dance towards the casket. And then, you know, I just took it all in, and then I was comforted by his hair, because his hair was the same. And then I just thought, oh, you know what, like the person that I loved in life, you know, I loved in death too. And then I just wasn't afraid anymore.
On May 31st, 1999, Owen Hart is laid to rest.
Owen Hart, known as the Blue Blazer in the ring, was killed last week when a stunt went horribly wrong at a match in Missouri. Taking part in a tearful farewell were the sport's superstars, politicians, and a huge crowd of fans.
We were riding in the funeral procession, and there were Canadians pulled off on the side of the road, letting us pass, like Owen was a head of state. It was amazing to see how revered he was in that town, in that country, and in our business.
There were so many people that came to the service, and we didn't have room for everybody inside, but there were over 1,000 people outside of the funeral home just to listen. We broadcast it, we piped it out through speakers. I'm a very forgiving person, and I'm not bitter or angry, but there will be a day of reckoning, and this is my final promise to Owen. When you live in a world of make-believe and something so real happens, you want to hammer that home. Although I didn't know exactly what had happened yet, that I...
Okay. A brief aside from that, we're going to talk about what's going on in our game here. So, the Enforcers of Evil, Scott Levy and Matt Bourne, are a tag team that also work kind of in a cult gimmick. The Matt Bourne is more or less Scott Levy's it's like a mentor protege relationship on screen, and he's leading him down a bad path, as it were. Scott was a young kid, a little full of himself, not exactly like a nice guy by any means, but Matt Bourne seems to be leading him down a darker and darker path all the time. More important is going to be our protagonist, the one we're hearing about here the most, Owen. Owen and Taz have been in a tag team for a while here, known as the Suplex Society. So they are going to be teaming this time, as opposed to prior. We had a tag match between with Dynamite and Owen, and then Owen had a singles match. So we're going to have, this time it's going to be Taz, yeah, let's take that out of there. This time it's going to be Owen and Taz. So the Raging Stampede is what Owen and Dynamite are called, and the Suplex Society is him and Taz. Him and Taz were originally a team before Dynamite came in. Oh, excuse me. But after Dynamite came in, Dynamite was at that time a bigger star than both of them, and actually at this time he currently is too, just based on the whole thing with Dynamite being in the main picture, and Owen had he actually just lost a light heavyweight belt. Earlier he was juggling 2 titles. That might have been another good time to set it, but in any event, we're watching it now. And they are known as the Technical Trinity together, the 3 of them. Basically, at some point here, here, the whole description's right there, but we'll lower it a little bit. So it was formed by Owen Hart, being called out by Taz. Taz kind of says, "Hey man, you abandoned me. You abandoned our tag team. You had me fighting, on my own down in the lower cards." He broke his hand, so he was out for a couple of months. So Dynamite and him got even more steam, and they started to look at like title picture. So Taz came to Owen, and he was like, "You know what? It's fine. It's over. I just wanted to address it, so it's not something that's still lingering between us." Very babyface way to kind of resolve the conflict. And Owen, to even be more of a babyface, to a one-upsmanship, the babyfacemanship, Owen says, no, you've got it all wrong. I'm not trying to abandon you. I don't want to leave our tag team. We're great together. Owen, wrestling is the #1 most important thing to Owen. So he says, we wrestle well. We're all very technical in the ring. We should all work together. And so this is Technical Trinity. They're a red hot act right now. They're hugely important. Taz seems to have gotten shuffled down the card a bit, but we're going to have him actually today try and see if he can't get some of his own heat, because we're going to be breaking the Technical Trinity up. It says here, like, oh, are they going to last? Well, they've been around since April, and it's November now, but all things must come to an end. And Taz is gonna turn in this one. Let me put that on there. So we're gonna have Owen turned on by Taz. And you know what? Just to make it worse, even, it'll be Owen that gets pinned. Owen gets pinned by Matt Bourne, and Taz leaves Owen. Taz just leaves him there. So we're gonna have a storytelling match here, where a babyface gives up on his partner. The same thing he accused Owen of doing, abandoning the tag team, which Owen is actively not trying to do. Trying to still team with Taz, trying to still manage his singles career, trying to still team with Dynamite. Taz is going to do. Taz is going to abandon the tag team. Taz is going to turn his back and walk away from Owen in the middle of the ring while Owen's getting dissected by the Enforcers of Evil. So we've got that added in. We'll play the video again.
I was going to get to the bottom of it, and that I would have my day of reckoning.
After Owen Hart's funeral, his widow Martha travels to Kansas City to try and piece together the events surrounding her husband's death.
I saw my mom transform into a completely different person, but she became a fighter. That means I have to go to Kansas City. I have to see the arena that he plummeted in.
We actually went up on the catwalk.
She needed to see it firsthand. She needed to, as hard as it was, to know. And she had to go and take us so that we would never have to wonder, and that we would never grow older thinking, if only I'd known.
I really didn't want to leave any stone unturned, so I consciously chose to go on that catwalk and to walk to the exact spot where he fell. From my understanding, Owen had to make his way down that little catwalk to get to the point where he needed to be. We walked right to the spot, literally right at the top of the arena.
And when I looked over that cliff, well, into the abyss down below, I saw distance between where we were and the ground, and knowing that he just, like, that he went out there. I can't even imagine the fear that he would have been feeling in those final minutes, like those seconds, but still not forfeiting the opportunity to bring us the life that we had. So, ultimate sacrifice.
It was, very disheartening for me to know that that's the last things that he saw, and how hopeless that feeling would have been to know that there was nothing you could do. Your life was over and you knew it. I have all these nagging suspicions that, Owen was the most cautious person I'd ever known. He'd never take, any sort of uncalculated risk. And how did this happen? There must be negligence. Like, someone doesn't just fall from the top of an arena and die, and something went wrong. Like, something's wrong here.
And so, what evidence did the Kansas City police show you?
They brought everything in and they put it all out on a table, and then we kind of went through everything slowly, and that's the first time that I saw the clip. This is some of the legal documents, and this is actually the clip that held Owen. This is the actual clip. It's a clip meant for the sole use of sailboats, and how it's designed is it's designed to release on load. So when you have a load on it, and then when you just click it, then it just opens. It opens immediately because the design is to let the mast down on a sailboat. It's this quick release right here, 6 pounds of pressure to release it like that. That's it. This is what was holding him. This little thing right there. That's it. When I first saw the clip, the very first time, I gasped, and I was so upset. It was just appalling. We looked at statements to really piece together what we felt Owen's last day was like.
Just hours before the Over the Edge pay-per-view event, Owen was approached by the riggers to rehearse the stunt.
They had approached Owen and asked him to do a rehearsal, and then he said, "No, it's okay, I got it." Bobby Talbert said, "Well, but it's a different setup." And so Owen said, "Okay, to my understanding, they did it. I don't know to this day if they did it with the quick snap shackle or the locking carabiner. I have a sense that it was the locking carabiner because he didn't release himself." The way Owen had been rigged previously, they felt looked a bit clumsy, a bit sloppy, and what they wanted was this quick release. Like, as soon as you hit the ground, you just unrelease and you're ready to go immediately. And so that's what they wanted. It was to save 2 seconds of the setup. Bobby Talbert should have never been in charge of rigging anybody. He had no experience.
Do you remember what you came to learn were the riggers' final instructions to Owen?
They said, as long as you don't pull this cord, you'll be okay. And he never pulled the cord. After I'd gathered enough information about what had happened, I was so firm in my belief that there was absolute negligence involved, hand over fist. Everything was pointing in that direction.
With my full authority, my legal counsel filed a wrongful death lawsuit against WWF, Vince McMahon, and all others I believe are responsible for my husband's death.
I was suing Vince in Kansas City, and he wanted the case moved to Connecticut because in Connecticut, there are no punitive damages awarded. He chose to sue me, the widow, which caused a lot of grief, and on top of it, he was manipulating Owen's family.
There were some people in the family that were for it, and some people that were against it when the lawsuit came up. I'm sure a lot of shock and trepidation amongst the core Hart family that you can't sue the most powerful man in wrestling because their family life had centered around professional wrestling. And there were still a lot of other people in the family that probably thought that Vince McMahon was going to be good to them in the future.
The Hart family, they were not supportive of my lawsuit against WWF. Some members were silent, And then other ones actively worked against me, stealing my legal documents, giving them to the defense. So they basically had our playbook. So that was very heartbreaking for me, you know, because I said to them, you know, you don't have to support me, but please just don't work against me.
Well, it would appear that there were no precautionary measures taken. Why not?
First of all, I resent your tone.
I resent the sarcasm. Again,
No, I resent your tone, lady, okay?
Why
You know, this was a tragic accident.
Her fight for justice was an uphill battle, to say the least, a real David and Goliath story. I do think that the measurable neglect that had to go into something so catastrophic cannot be overlooked. This tragedy is the magnitude at which it's at, is because it was completely preventable. This was a guy who was 240 pounds. There could have been a rigging team that knew what they were doing, and they didn't because it was more expensive.
After a year-long legal battle between Martha Hart and the WWF, a settlement is reached in the amount of $18 million.
For me, I didn't care about the money. It wasn't about money for me. I wanted this case to go to trial. That was my biggest, you know, thrust from start to finish, was that I didn't want a settlement. I was looking for justice. I was looking for accountability.
All my mom was trying to do was preserve the dignity that my dad had and give her kids the best life they could have.
The settlement provides some closure, but the WWF's decision to continue the show after Owen's fatal fall remains controversial to this day.
How did this happen? He didn't commit suicide. Was there foul play? Is it an accident? We don't know, so leave everything the way it is till we figure this out. No, we'll just go ahead and have 4 or 5 more matches. That they didn't stop Kansas City was bullshit.
The fact that Vince just discarded Owen like he was a piece of garbage and scraped his dead body off the mat and sent wrestlers out to wrestle on a ring where Owen's blood was, and it even had broken some of the boards, Owen's fall, so there was a dip in the ring and they could feel where he fell. The police should have stopped the show and they should have investigated immediately. This was a potential crime scene. There's been a death here, and, you know, we can't just let the show go on.
There's nothing that I've ever experienced that compares to Owen Hart's death and having to live with it every day since. It's the worst moment in my wrestling career. Maybe the worst moment in my life. Here's a vibrant guy that died unnecessarily before he could ever get to the peak of his career, who had a beautiful family and a wonderful mom and dad who were so proud of him because the youngest Hart had stepped away from the pack and he made his own way with his own style, his own uniqueness, and they were all proud of him.
He was popular everywhere he went, kind of introduced this high-flying style all around the world. He was a pioneer. He could be serious, he could be funny, he could be a technician in the ring, he could be a high flyer in the ring. He was great at everything. Had Owen not died in '99, even though he was getting a little bit disenfranchised with the rest of us, think about who was coming into the business and coming into WWE at that time. In less than a year, Guerrero was there, Malenko was there, Edge, Christian, Kurt Angle. Owen would have had a huge career resurgence because I don't think anybody could keep up with him in the WWE in 1999.
We'll never know how great he could have been because he's just approaching that place when he fell from the skies in Kansas City. If a guy like me's in the Hall of Fame, there's no damn way that Owen Hart should be in 10.
Owen Hart should be in every wrestling Hall of Fame there is because of his talent and because he belonged there. But he's not in the Hall of Fame because his wife does not want him celebrated and glorified by the same company that took him away from her.
I would never allow for Owen to be recognized by a company that actually is responsible for his death.
I would never let WWE put his name on a piece of silver and say that they got that. We have built a foundation that helps put people in homes, that helps single moms like my mom was, that let kids go to school. This is all done in his namesake. This is all got Owen Hart written all over it. This is how communities, this is how people, society remembers him. And that's how we want it to be done. Yeah, he was a wrestler, but other than that. He was bigger than that. That was just part of what he was.
Well, I wish everyone a Merry Christmas, and we're very grateful that we are as fortunate as we have everything that we could ever ask for, and most importantly, our health and our happiness together.
I feel like if my dad had never been in wrestling, he'd still be here. And so I've always blamed like wrestling for not, like everything that's happened. It's just like all wrestling's fault. If it never would have like caught his eye, he would have done something else, and then we would have all been together.
And when I think of him, I just think happy trails. And I would have really liked to have had you around.
Merry Christmas, Oj.
Merry Christmas, Dad.
It would have been a lot of fun. It was fun. Thanks for that.
There was one person that always believed in me, and that was Owen. And I think he'd be so thrilled that Oj is a lawyer and that he's going to pursue human rights law, and that Athena's a journalism graduate and is pursuing that. When you lose someone that you love, because you still have all that love for them. I took all that love that I had for Owen, and I created the Owen Hart Foundation. Our message is that, you know, be kind to people. Life is hard, and everything we do through the foundation is a reflection of the type of person that he was. His generosity of spirit and the kindness that he exuded. So I think he would be, you know, clapping and applauding me up there in heaven and saying, well done, you.
All right. That was Dark Side of the Ring. Owen Hart. We've built out most of the card here for this, so let me actually just run it for us. Why not? Let's see. Do a swagger again for David. Yeah, let's just do that. That works. Dr. D. Alright. Very good. Good stuff, David. Wow, David Schultz is pulling a 73 at his age. That's fucking killer. $100 on the promo. Whoop, whoop. 6-man or 3-way tag was good. Dutch and Zenk was good. Wow, we got a 90 on Michael Hayes Dynamite Kid. Good stuff. Okay. Okay. Pretty good promo there. Happy with that. That's fine. Owen with an 86. Let's go, Owen. Showing out. Showing Owen. Taz and Owen, excellent chemistry together. Let's see. Let's handle the changes. So Taz is turning heel. And it was a complete success. Turn was built up for one whole segment. Really, we were building this for months, but only one time did they subtly show hints that Taz was gonna flip, as he did. Holy crap. Jerry Lawler pile drives Sting into a 94. Sean came out 95 with Hennig. A 92 for the promo. Oof. Okay, 76. Let's see what we can do. 83 for my final total on my show. Let's see what the final score was. 84. We can do okay with an 84. That's okay. Alright. We're going to praise Jerry. And, well, actually, yeah, Jerry, Sting, and Sean. Oh, let's do Sean and Kurt. Cool. That's a wrap, y'all. 2 TVs and a Thanksgiving event of TEW booked. Join me next time. We're going to do Dynamite Kid for the next one. Peace out.